Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Moreno Show. Hope you guys are feeling really good today. Guys, Elon Musk might be starting a third party, and to some of you, that idea could be the best possible idea in the entire world. Best thing you heard all day. And to others, that could sound like your worst nightmare. And you know what? Today we're going to talk about it. And this is coming from someone who is actually very open to third parties in the past. But even today, I discovered something that kind of set me back a little bit. All right. So is this the best thing in the world? Is there an opportunity for a third party to be a viable option in the future, especially with someone like Elon Musk backing this idea? Or could it actually create more division, create more harm than healing? Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's jump right in. Also, guys, if you like having conversations like this, if you think they matter, or maybe you just think this is entertaining, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does make a huge difference. All right, let's jump right in. So, on Independence Day, yesterday, early in the morning, Elon Musk put out this tweet saying, Independence Day is the perfect time to ask if you want independence from the two party, some would say uniparty system. Should we create the America Party? Yes or no? And 65% people wrote yes. And to me, this just struck a chord with a lot of people. 1.2 million people participated here, 65 saying yes, 34 saying no. And to me, this says that people are hungry for unity like never before. Across the political spectrum, people are feeling tiresome. They're exhausted, and they just know that there just has to be a better way, a better solution. So a new party does seem attractive. I understand that. I really do. But what are some of the downsides to this? And believe me, there are some downsides to whether we continue going down this path and letting the uniparty just get strong and stronger, or if we even engage in this idea of creating a viable third party option. There's good and bad on both sides. This isn't just a binary 0 or 1. Like there are nightmare scenarios on both edges of the extreme here. All right, but let's go ahead and talk. Before I do talk about this, though, I do want to share a couple of things that I saw yesterday that I thought were pretty awesome. Just some quick media pieces that I thought were great from John Federman to JD Vance to Secretary Kennedy. These are all like really, really quick pieces, but I do think they're awesome. So let me go ahead and share this real quick. John Federman of Pennsylvania yesterday, he wrote, last week Gallup polled only 36% of Democrats are extremely or very proud to be American. In the greatest country in the world, that is just wrong. I'm unapologetically grateful for our nation and the American way of life today and always. Happy birthday, America. So good. And it looks like it's a picture of his car with the American flag on it, which I think is just awesome. But I do think this goes back to what Elon Musk um what was displayed in his poll, right? Look at this. These are kind of devastating results, to say the least. People are unsatisfied across the political spectrum, whatever edge that you identify with. People aren't satisfied, and it says that the system is broken. But check this out. This is JD Vance. He brought his family to Mount Rushmore yesterday, and it's just a 30-second clip, but I think this is awesome. Check it out.
Hey guys, JD Vance here in beautiful Mount Rushmore. I've actually never been here. I brought my kids with us. Ush and I are having a great time visiting one of America's great national landmarks. We see this as a great occasion to celebrate Independence Day. Of course, tomorrow is the 249th birthday of our country. And we in the Trump administration, we're also celebrating the passing of the great big beautiful bill, which lowers taxes on Americans and gives us the critical resources we need to secure that southern border into the future. So however you're celebrating, wherever you're celebrating, happy Independence Day. Make it a great one.
So good. I think my favorite thing about the Trump administration, well, probably one of my favorite things, is just the amount of patriotism and the beauty that they're highlighting in American culture. Right, that's something that I just haven't seen in past administrations, and I think this is amazing. Like, yeah, yes, let's celebrate our landmarks. Let's go ahead and shine some incredible light on the beauty of what it means to be an American. And I think this is just great. And speaking of another great thing that I saw from Secretary Kennedy, check this out. We have people out here making America safe again, but we also have people out here making America healthy again, like Mr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., our HHS secretary. Check this out.
Hey everyone, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary. It's the 4th of July, so I want to talk about independence and particularly health independence. I always like to say that a healthy person has 1,000 dreams, but a sick person has only one. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness doesn't mean very much if you're too sick to enjoy it. I'm sorry to say that for the last 6 decades, Americans have gotten sicker and sicker. We are now the sickest country on earth. Life expectancy has declined precipitously. Liberty has vanished for people who are mired in serious chronic illnesses. And an epidemic of addiction and mental illness has hobbled the pursuit of happiness. As ultra processed food took over our diets and pharmaceutical profits corrupted our healthcare system, this country has lost the most basic of all freedoms, the freedom that comes from being healthy. Right now, there's a new American revolution underway to change all that. We've just gotten started here at HHS to rebuild a food and medical system that are worthy of your trust. And I'm inviting you to join the revolution too by making healthy choices for you and your family. Happy Independence Day, everyone.
So good. Are you kidding me? What a great uplifting message from our Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But to talk about the main subject matter of the video, talking about third party, I did think it was important to share that clip because, obviously, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he ran as a third party candidate. He started the We the People Party in order to be able to run in a variety of different states in order so he could actually get on the ballot. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. knows this path more than ever. Even Elon Musk was incredibly fond of RFK Jr. He even brought him onto their version of the debate stage alongside President Trump and President Biden whenever he wasn't actually invited to be alongside them. They started the real debate and it was broadcasted on X, all over X. And I just thought that was great. So Elon Musk has been someone who has been incredibly engaged in this conversation for a really long time. So let's talk about this. Let's look at these numbers a little bit. 65% of people said yes, 34% of people said no. Now, why is that important? Although that those are extremely high numbers, even then, I want to bring this up. Elon Musk did share this about exactly a month ago from today. This is June 5th, 2025. This poll has over 165 million views, 5 million people participated. And look at this, 80% of people actually said yes here. 19 said no. The reason I bring this up is just to show that there's still massive fluctuation within this conversation, and that number changes daily. But it is worth noting that this poll had 5 million participants, right? 5.6. This poll had 1.2. Days like days like Independence Day, probably not a good day to run a poll. People probably aren't on X or Twitter as often as they normally would be. But I do think that's still nonetheless a really interesting poll that we could talk about. But check this out. You know what else I saw? I saw this from Holden, and he brought up this great quote by John Adams because he's actually in favor of the third party. Holden is great. He also supported Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He still does. But look at what he wrote here from John Adams. John Adams said, "There is nothing I dread so much as a division of the republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leader, and concerting measures in opposition to each other. This, in my humble oppression, is to be dreaded as the greatest political evil under our Constitution." So this is really, really, I never heard this from John Adams before, but you know what? This is so wildly true, and you can see that he put this underneath a tweet from Elon Musk saying important to vote on this poll. But whenever I read this, I had one immediate thought, which is, would a third party actually solve the division crisis in this country? Or would we actually be more divided because there'd be more slots that people could go into? Even now, whenever you're a libertarian, you're still very frustrated with the Libertarian Party, right? Because I don't know if more options creates less division. I actually think it might have the adverse effect. And I do think that's unfortunate. And I don't offer any real solution to that, but I do think it's important to acknowledge. Now, here's what I think is interesting. Scott Presser, the guy who essentially helped defeat Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania and giving that victory to President Trump, he opposes third parties with every fiber of his being. And he's been talking about this for a while. And you know what? He's making some pretty good arguments here. Check this out. On one of his posts, he wrote, "Just leaving this here to make it crystal clear." And he added Grok and asked him this question: would the creation of the America Party help elect more Democrats? That's the question. And Grok, which is X's chat bot, they wrote, yes, forming the America Party will likely elect more Democrats by splitting the Republican vote, as third parties historically spoil for their ideological kin. Aiding Clinton in 1992, and polls show Musk's base is right-leaning, amplifying this risk. This is true. I don't think anybody's going to argue that Musk's base is right-leaning and that this would actually end up pulling from Republicans, making Republicans less powerful, ultimately giving more power to Democrats. The idea that people become, or third-party candidates become spoiler candidates and ultimately end up helping the other edge of the ideological spectrum is actually something that we see quite a lot. Even in this election, we saw it almost happen with Kamala Harris and Trump and the third-party candidates, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Jill Stein. Look, in Wisconsin, President Trump won the vote by 30,000 votes. All right. And that is almost the exact number of both Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s and Jill Stein's votes collected. All right, because RFK Jr. ended with 17,000, Jill Stein ended with 12,000. Would that have been enough to sway Kamala Harris into victory? If you ask me, probably, especially if someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. ended up staying in the race. If you tell me that you don't think he would have ended up pulling at least 30,000 votes from President Trump, I just think that's true. I think he would have actually taken those 30,000 votes from President Trump and given it to Kamala Harris. I think that makes sense. We're talking about 30,000 votes here. RFK Jr. stopped campaigning in early August. He had 4 months to campaign in every swing state alongside President Trump. Of course, he could, Scott Presser does have an interesting idea, though. Check this out. He wrote 4 hours ago saying, I have an idea. Instead of forming a third party, why don't we organize to get voter ID on the ballot in every state that allows a citizen-initiated petition? Use the millions that would go to a new party to ensure fair elections, which would deliver countless seats. All right. And someone again asked Grok, would this work and help America be greater? Thank you in advance, Elon Musk. And Grok responded saying, yes, this could work in the 26 states allowing citizen-initiated ballot measures. Voter ID has succeeded via initiatives before. Example, Mississippi, 2011, North Carolina, 2018. It would boost election integrity, reduce fraud claims, and build public trust, key to making America great. All right, very, very interesting. And Scott Presser even responded with saying, yes. So, there are some good ideas here, but there's a lot of good ideas. And even George Washington actually spoke about the dangers of such commitment to political extremes. And I'd love to share this a little bit. It's a little bit long, but I do think it's important. This was his farewell address in September 17, 1796. He wrote, or he spoke, it serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one party against another, foments occasionally riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which find a facilitated access to government itself through the channels of party passions. Thus, the policy and the will of one country are subjected to the policy and will of another. There is an opinion that parties in free countries are useful checks upon the administration of the government and serve to keep alive the spirit of liberty. This, within certain limits, is probably true. And in governments of a monarchical caste, patriotism may look with indulgence, if not with layout, upon the spirit of party. But in those of popular character, in governments purely elective, It is a spirit not to be encouraged. From the natural tendency, it is certain there will always be enough of that spirit for every salutary purpose, and there being constant danger of excess, the effort ought to be, by force of public opinion, to mitigate and assuage it. A fire not to be quenched, it demands a uniform vigilance to prevent its bursting into a flame, lest instead of warming, it should consume. Here he's saying that parties will naturally undermine national unity. They would, unfortunately, prioritize party over country, and that will stir up division. I say this because while I do think this conversation is really complicated, like, could someone just go ahead and be elected to an established party, like the Republican Party, like President Trump, and ultimately get so much influence over the party that they could direct it from the inside? Could that happen? President Trump did it. He proved that it can happen. But then we might be back in square one again. Now there's going to constantly be extreme partisanship. There's going to be so much noise that people will unfortunately drown in division, just like we are today. So is this an opportunity for a third party to not only exist, but to thrive? Some would say it. But as Scott Presser has mentioned, there are dangers in that opportunity. But, maybe it is worth it. All right. Maybe there would be far less division with another party that is more reflective of the people they're serving. But even then, would it not just become another giant party who have also lost themselves from the people that they're trying to serve? There's dangers across all of this. There really are. And if you ask me, I just don't know if the future is left or right, but it is always forward. And I guess the real question is, what direction do you want to move forward with? Do you want to move forward with one of these major parties, or do you want to move forward with a new expression of modern politics, maybe expressed through Elon Musk's The America Party? I'm not sure, but I'd love to know what you think about this. All right, let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, what's interesting to you, and yeah, what future do you want to create? All right, let me know in the comment section, and please remember to like and subscribe. All right, it really does make a huge difference. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day. Episode's over already? Geez, that was fast. Well, they say beautiful things do not last forever, but feel free to watch and listen to another one of these episodes if you're interested in those conversations as well. Also, this next part is huge. Make sure to obliterate that like and subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never skip a beat. I also have a newsletter where we dive into the news, politics, and ideas that shape our future. If you're interested in signing up, I'd really appreciate that. Anyways, that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.